This episode brought to you by John's Sourdough Starter. I am Sour Joe, feed me!
This is Hot Drop, where we bring you premier gaming analysis and drops. I'm Dano.
I'm Cody.
And I'm John, and let's get into it. We are Hot Drop, one fine podcast show. You might know us from the very feed you are listening to, where we talked about PUBG and other games for the last few years. If you're new to the show, we also have other podcasts, Dive, featuring variety banter and research informational learnings, and the Tarkov Escape Pod, where Dan spends way too long going on and on. Where Dan spends way too long going on and on about materialism.
We also have a Discord where you can hang out with other mature, like-minded gamers, or just be notified that we're going live on Twitch every Monday and Thursday at 8 p.m. UTC/GMT -5 at twitch.tv/the_hot-drop.
We also have one of the hottest things that no other podcast out there is doing. We have a hotline, 508-216-0006. Call us, have your voice on the show, tell us how great we are at being podcast masterminds, and be yourself. This is the Hot Drop, and here's some download on Hunt Showdown, which is currently 45% off on Steam sale.
Shuck out the money, you plebes!
I'm trying to think of a good way to transition over to John again. Well, all right, yeah, we'll just start with a little banter, and then it'll just happen naturally.
Listen, not once in my life have I fucking bantered, and I don't plan to start today. So why don't we cut the bullshit, and John can just tell us about the fucking game.
Let me tell you about the fucking game. You queue up in a squad. We do it in teams of 3, which is the max. When you enter into the game, you search for clues. These are highlighted in your dark vision, which is just like a darkened view of everything. However, it highlights where these clues are, and you can see them from far away. You collect 3 clues. That'll tell you where the boss is. You go kill the boss. Once the boss is dead, you activate it, which starts the banishing process. Counts from 0 to 100%. Again, I think it's about 2.5 minutes, something around there, to banish fully. Side note, as it's banishing, it alerts everybody on the map that it's banishing and where that boss is. So that's when you have to be really prepared. After banishing, you pick up 2 bounty tokens. You as a player can only hold 1 at a time, so you and a teammate have to pick 1 up each, and then get to an extract, which are placed around the map. There are a maximum of 3 on a map, and when you extract, you get the points.
Seems easy enough.
During the course of the map, you run into a bunch of enemies, which we're going to talk about, and then break down the bosses. We're going to talk about, our general styles, some strats maybe that you can use, and just any information or fun tips that we have for it.
Yeah, definitely. So I like the gameplay loop. Let's start there. So one of the things Cody said last week was all about the 3 acts.
Yeah, that was
3
great.
separate acts of the game, and I said at the time I'd never really thought of it that way.
Neither had I until I said it, to be fair.
And that's why we keep you around.
Sometimes things just come out of my mouth and they sound smart, and it's gotten me promoted this far in my career, so I'm going to stick with it.
And sometimes it's vomit.
Yep. And
I would say 32% of the time it's vomit. But then that makes things awkward, and people are afraid to get you in trouble or make you feel bad if you're the vomit guy.
You don't want to be the vomit guy.
Who wants to address the vomit guy,
You
right?
don't.
Exactly.
No one.
So,
But anyway, let's vomit all over the Bayou here. First act is hunting. Is like spawning into the game, waiting about sometimes up to 5 minutes for players to join the game, which is always fun. And then it says hunt. And then what happens?
you pick your closest clue and you go to it.
Is there any kind of strategy to the first clue? Because I sometimes like going to an edge of the map so I don't have to backtrack in case it might be in that random spot, that like far corner, you know?
I think most of the time we check the map, and if we're in the short side, so if you have two monsters or two bosses that you're going to have to kill, there is usually one in a smaller section of the map than there is the second one. And if you end up in the smaller section, you're going to want to get those clues first because you have a better chance of stumbling upon the boss, killing the boss, and being able to go for the second token.
Which is something that we never even realized we could do until we started doing it. And we were like, oh my God, why are we not doing this? Why haven't we done this all along?
But now it's strategic for us as well. So if we happen to be in the smaller portion of the map and we get it, we'll make a decision on whether or not it is smart for us to go for the second token based on where we are and where the extract points are on the map.
And we've also done... Sorry, go ahead.
Every area has a clue. However, as you collect the clues, it grays out or X's off some sections of the map, so you can't get clues there. So there's some strategy, like you can't plan your full route right away because you don't know if an area is going to get removed. However, it tends to remove the edges of the map first.
Yeah, and there is one spot on the map that always has multiple clues. Yeah. That is like, it was the train station or lumberyard. And there are always multiple clues there, and sometimes they will still be there when you pick up a clue. So what we've been trying to explain is, say Dan, John, and myself are all neighbors on properties that are like ranches, right? So it's a good chunk of property, but we're not like, I can't throw a rock and hit John's house. I see a clue, and I could probably run for 2 minutes and get to John's house. Sometimes if I pick up the clue at my own house, John's house would then be grayed out, and I would have to go to Dan's house, which is further. But sometimes it happens to be that my clue does not gray out John's, and we have a closer clue, and we are that much closer to finding the boss before everybody else does.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes the clues can be the actual location of the boss. So you'll head towards something that you think is just a clue, and you'll show up and you'll realize the boss is actually there. That's
and you can
always
spawn on the edge, so you can spawn literally on top of it. You can kill the boss in the first 30 seconds of the map sometimes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest parts about this game, I think, is when you stumble upon the boss and you don't know, when you go into your Wraith sight, your dark vision, the sounds get scarier, and the icon for the boss glows white. It flashes white, and you hear these like demonic whispers happening really close to you. Yeah, it's almost exactly like that.
It's actually
but
just John.
In 7.1.
I just do it every time we get close to the boss.
So like it doesn't actually happen. And now that I'm speaking, I'm embarrassed. And I'm out.
And you're going to vomit. So yeah, I mean, the other cool thing that we've done before is we've gotten to the point where we've collected 2 of the 3 clues on the way to the third, and it's a 2 monster map. It's a 2 boss map. And we might have 1 clue that goes to the second boss. We might have no clues at all. But then another team on the map has found that second boss, the one we weren't even going for, and has started to banish it. So we've realized, and depending on the location of where we are in relation to the clue that we're headed towards, in relation to the other boss, wherever his lair is, sometimes we've decided to back off of our plan of finding that monster and going to the other one. Because we realized, what if we get there faster than anyone else, fight that team, potentially beat them, and steal the clue out from under them? And then we already have 2 clues for the other boss, which we can then go and get after we win that first fight.
And chances are, knowing that there are at most 3 teams other than us in that map, we could engage not only the team that had banished it, but a second team coming up on them, which we could then wipe out, which leaves 1 team and us to go for the second monster. And I like those odds.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of strategy beyond what you think, what you first might realize. At first glance, you think this is a pretty straightforward game. But you can make moves like that. And because there's so few other teams on the map, you have a little more knowledge of where you might find enemies. And you can use that to your advantage. Like, you might start off the round and immediately down a team, kill them off, and suddenly there's only 2-3 other teams at most roaming the map. And then maybe you hear a fight off in the distance, and that usually means, well, one team is going to win that fight, and the other team is going to die at that point. And so now there's just 2 teams left. So, and if that math adds up, you know that you have a one-on-one fight at the last boss. You beat them, and you have a victory lap around the map on the way to extract. So
I'm trying to have fun here, so if you could not bring math into this, I'd appreciate it.
We had an issue with that last week. 75 and 75.
Yeah.
Not 200, whatever we said.
I don't even know anymore.
Anyway, so the first act of the showdown, you might say, is finding the boss. And so what are our strategies for finding the first boss outside of just picking the first clue to go to? For me, it's being really quiet unless I'm mad and I'm tilted and I'm shooting everything on sight.
Let's say that's 1 of 5.
One of
every 5. One of every 5.
Sounds right. Every 5 losses.
Yeah.
1 loud. Yeah. But do we have any other strategies or tips for heading to that first clue other than just be quiet?
We always bring in melee weapons. Pretty much almost always. It's like a mistake if we have forgotten a melee weapon. And that's to kill those early grunts that we see, the ones around the first clue. And they're also really good against the hive and armored that you're bound to encounter near the first clue.
Mm-hmm. And what do we think of the different melee options? I feel like dusters is one of them. Knives is another. You can get swords.
When we first started playing this game, I could have sworn by the heavy knife that was the greatest melee weapon you could find, because it doesn't take away a lot of stamina. It's got to have more heavy hitting power than the small knife or the knuckled knife. And then I realized your melee weapons shouldn't be stabby. They should always be blunt and punchy, because you will be able to hurt the immolators more easily, and you could always shoot any other larger enemy if you need to. And so I like to stick with dusters only now. I don't use any other melee weapons other than the dusters.
You don't even bring a knife?
I don't bring a knife, no.
Damn.
See, and I disagree. I think the knife is more utility, because you can kill an immolator with the butt of your gun. It takes your entire stamina bar with the heavy hits, but it'll kill it. So I always bring in a knife, and between us, Cody and I could kill anything on the map.
And then Dan can just stand back like a state worker and watch 2 people work while he supervises.
I actually bring both. I bring a knife and dusters. That's the best part.
A knife to a duster fight.
So the knife actually is really good against the armored. I don't know how many duster punches it takes, but it takes 3 heavy knife swings. Not heavy knife, but knife heavy swings. I don't use the heavy knife. I don't use the knuckle knife. I use the regular knife.
The knuckle knife sounded great on paper until we kept misclicking. And by that, I mean holding down the mouse 1 for a little bit too long, and then it stabs. And then when you stab an immolator, he explodes in your face.
And
so I was done with that after that.
It is a hair's width of a distinction between holding it down and just clicking it for that punch or stab.
Yeah. And it's the same button. It's not like one button is swing and the other one is stab. It's the same button, so it's really difficult to nail it every time, especially under duress. If you get surprised by an immolator and then you got grunts around you and then another team shoots you and you're like, ah! And then you click it a little bit too long and you've just blown yourself up. For the most part.
So, Dan, how would you describe the normal grunts that we're talking about?
Kind of drippy. A little bit, a little meaty.
I like to call them baddies. They're baddies.
In terms of combat?
Sometimes they're slappy. Other times they're cutty. Some have hot sticks. Mm-hmm. And then some are doctors. It's true.
Some took 7 years of medical school to get to the point of being a grunt.
And have lovely prescription glasses.
Yes, they do.
And they also drop health packs. And they carry around old-timey... What do you call those?
Bone saws?
Bone saws. There you go. Yeah, like the amputation device.
Bone saw.
Bone saw. Yeah.
Yeah. The doctor is unique. It poisons you if it hits you, and it always drops a med kit when you kill it. So which is very, very useful to know. So if you get roasted by an immolator and then fight a doctor, you can heal up really easily.
I find that the doctors weren't necessarily worth putting in the game.
Yeah, I mean, we do struggle with med kits more without them in it. It's a bonus for sure.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Not necessarily,
but they're so easy to kill comparatively to the higher tier grunts. Like if you were to rank them, like, well, we've gotten pretty good at killing hives, but like immolators are a threat, hives are a threat, doctors are a threat, meaty boys are a big old threat. And the doctor, you just walk up to him and stab him before he can get you, and he's done for.
Yeah, but
okay. I do want to rank them, so I think we should talk about the enemies, and then we should talk about their kind of like threat level, because I have some thoughts about that.
All right, so grunts, first off, common zombies, I would say. Some of them don't have any weapons at all. They just punch you or slap you. Some of them have knives, or what do you call those? Butcher knives, axes, whatever you call them. They cut, they hurt, and then others carry torches that can light you on fire.
And the Cutty ones do bleed damage, or can if they hit you more than once.
Yes.
Hot stick ones, the tortured ones, will set you on fire if they hit you more than once.
But they also set themselves on fire, so they really can only get you lit, and then they die.
Yeah. The thing is, they recently changed the burning damage, so that before the most recent patch, you would be hit by a hot stick, and you would instantly start burning, which made them a lot more dangerous, but a little less realistic.
Yeah, it would remove a small bar almost immediately.
Yeah, and you're in trouble because you have to put yourself out. You have to press and hold the use key to pat yourself down and put your fire out.
And now, if you don't do that, it's permanently removed from it. You can't heal through fire damage except through a boss kill. So it's a really strong power for just a normal grunt to have.
Yeah, which I thought made them a whole lot more dangerous, and I kind of liked it that way. Just the sheer dangerousness of grunts themselves. It's a crazy threat. I mean, if you're surrounded by even just 2 or 3 can really set you on fire, set you back, potentially knock you out if you're not paying attention, or if you come under fire from someone else. So I liked the dangerousness, the threat. But now it's, 2 hits in a row will light you on fire, but the first hit doesn't, so it's not so dangerous. But the doctor is kind of like you said, a bonus. It's nice to have. He drops a health pack, but he's not any more dangerous than any of the other ones. And then we have the more specialty types of enemies. Cody, talk about the hive. The many names of the hive.
I feel like one is... It's insensitive, and we never should have been calling her a bitch.
But she's...
I would never...
So I would
She's very rude. She's the rudest.
I would like to apologize to any deformed, spinally broken, locust-filled zombie women out there, and apologize for us calling you B-bitch for the first 2 weeks that we played this game. Before we called you the Locust Lady.
I didn't want to say B-bitch because that's not my style.
It feels icky. It feels icky, and I regret it.
She looks icky, though. I just wanted to point that out. Not in defense of the name, but overall, there's a lot of ickiness surrounding this character.
However,
not the most endearing.
The Locust Lady or the Hive, I think, cover what we need to cover. She is very mean. She screams quite loudly, and her ability to see and attack you with her swarm of locusts is pretty narrow, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You have to like stab or punch her right in the head, which again is broken off of her spine and hanging to the side in order to kill her.
She kind of protects it with her rib cage.
Yeah, it's not great. I don't like her. She's not nice.
And so what do the locusts do?
They'll poison you, and they poison you hard. So if you can outrun them, that is probably your best bet. Sometimes most of the time, John is pretty sacrificial with her, I think. Like, you will run up and just stab her in the face.
Yeah, I usually have an antidote shot, which is really, really helpful to carry around. And also, if you just get in and do a knife stab on her, it's very rare that I have to do a second stab. So the damage to me is usually very minimal and heals after the poison. Speaking of, poison does a couple of things. Makes it so that you can't heal while you are poisoned. It clouds your vision with like green, hazy, and like makes things kind of move around. And then, was that it? That's the only two things, right?
I think so. Well, it also tracks the meaty boys.
Oh, good point.
And so you combine a couple different enemies damaging you, I guess. And then suddenly you're in a bit of a situation, a bit of a pickle, you might say.
Well, let's go to the meaty boys right then there, because I feel like we've covered Hive Lady, haven't we?
Real quick, I want to say that to get the swarms off of you, you can melee them away. It takes a bit. It will usually kill a large bar while you're doing it. It's better to just kill the hive as fast as you can, no matter what. Like shoot, stab, whatever you got to do to get it killed.
Yeah.
And even when you don't know exactly where she is, if you're being attacked, it's best to try and seek her out if you hear her screaming.
Yeah. And if you can't find her, you can outrun the swarms of the bees.
Just takes
or whatever.
a while. They'll chase you for a while, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's also, at the same time, if you find yourself defending a token or defending a boss that's being banished, you might want to keep a hive alive, because she'll be outside of your little lair where you're trying to defend, but she'll do a really good job screaming and yelling when other people show up, alerting you that everyone is approaching you, and also she can send her little swarms of locusts at your enemies. Not a bad idea to keep her alive.
And if she is on one side close to you, it'll stop a lot of people from wanting to give away their position by killing her, and they won't attack that side. It's less likely that they will attack that side,
It's a good deterrent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to deep dive into strategies for defending positions, but we'll get to that at another day.
Let's get you all on board with this game, which happens to be 47% off on the Steam Online store
Hey.
now.
So meatheads.
Meaty boys.
The meatiest boys, which is a deceiving name because they have no head.
Yeah.
No head. And there's no distinguishing factor of whether it's a boy. It's just meaty.
The meatiest.
John, what's a meat boy?
So a meat boy is a big zombie who's got no head and no sight senses. So if you creep by it, you can actually walk right through what would be its line of sight and it won't attack you. However, it puts out leeches onto the ground that are attracted to the sight and sound of you. And if they bite you, it poisons you. And that will alert the meathead. The meathead is attracted to anyone poisoned. It can also track down sounds. So if you're loud near it, it'll charge towards you. But if you're poisoned, it'll kind of enrage, charge you, and it does a ton of damage when it swings, and it won't stop.
No, it won't ever stop. It's terrifying. That is the scariest monster, in my opinion.
And the leeches go far, too. It's not just like a small area around it. They will like seek out, and if you start making noise, they'll like try and track you down.
Yeah, so it drops anywhere from like 4 to 6 leeches. And so, like you just said, if it smells you, like usually the leeches will stay within proximity to the meat boy. But then if it smells you, the leech will start going after you. It'll like split off from its pack of leeches and like chase you down a little bit in order to poison you. And then, which, summons the meat boy after you. And the meat boy's fast. He's very fast. You can outrun him if you have full stamina. But if you don't.
Really?
Yeah. So if you are sprinting, but you're lungsy, basically. You've lost your stamina for sprinting.
Yeah.
It's going to catch you. But otherwise, you can just barely outrun it if you have a fresh bar. It is terrifying. But it's particularly weak to explosives and shotguns. So you could do a full kill on one of these guys with just a single dynamite stick.
However, it is of note that like fire is not necessarily its weakness, but explosives are. So if you have something like a Molotov or a lantern, they will hurt it, but it won't kill it as easily as throwing a dynamite stick or a sticky bomb on it.
Yeah, and I highly discourage you using any kind of melee weapons because they take way too many hits and you'll be dead before you finish the kill.
And they tend to spawn near a clue too. They do.
Yeah.
They do a lot near like gates or entrances to the areas, but they also tend to be like right on top of clues that we need. So usually a well-placed dynamite stick is a good idea in that case.
Yep, for sure. The only other, well, I wouldn't say only other, but one of the other enemies that I'm very scared of are those dogs, those hellhounds.
Yeah.
Just call them dogs. But they are fast. They hurt a lot. They give you heavy bleed damage. And sometimes they even have armored face armor. And you can't stab them in the face. It'll just ting right off their steel cages on their head. So these things are nasty, and they can be in a pack of up to 5 dogs at a time.
And that's really the problem, is like one dog on its own is really easy to deal with.
Yep.
You can stab it, you can melee it just like you normally would. If it's got a face shield, you got to do the body. But when they get into groups and they all like stagger their attacks on you, it's really hard to take care of them. So we usually call them out early and try and take care of them very quick.
And you also can't outrun them. Yeah. You either have to avoid them without them aggroing you, or you just go in and kill them. Because they have a pretty wide range of sight. Like, they're going to find you pretty quickly as you try to pass by.
You know what's really effective against them, actually, is our gate doors. You just close a gate door on them.
Got
Works pretty well.
Genius. Cody is constantly calling out dogs in a frightened voice. That's always frightened.
Dogs! I am not. If there is any monster that I am just not capable of killing the way that you guys do, it is the dogs.
They jump.
I'm never carrying the right thing because I only carry dusters. John always ends up picking up like a sledgehammer. I would say 80% of the time you have a sledgehammer in your hand. Just elbows up, running with the sledgehammer, ready to knock anything down. I am not good at it, especially when there is like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I am okay at killing a lot of the other grunts, but I am not at all good at killing dogs.
They initially, when we first started playing this game, they would rip me apart. I would take so much damage from them because I would try and engage them, and I was just kept trying to attack at the wrong time. They have this weird kind of halting leap animation that just threw me off every single time, and I would always take damage from it. But now I feel like I have a pretty good sense that when they stop, then I approach and try and get an early knife strike, and that'll keep them from doing damage to me. Again, if there's more than one, then I'll still get hit, but at least it'll, start the fight in a good position. And usually with a knife, that's what I'll use if I don't have a melee weapon.
Mm-hmm. Immolators.
That's I always yell for Dusty Boys.
Dusty Boys. Yeah,
because somebody with a duster is really helpful at this.
Dusty Boys, mount up. Those dusters are key.
Yeah, this is my weakness because I always have a knife.
So the immolators are like Burning Men. They're just like on fire skeleton corpse things, and they will ruin your day if you don't get them fast enough. So they kind of like slunk around, kind of on their tiptoes, like a 1950s villain. And the second they see you, they'll just bolt toward you, and if you let them get one hit on you, they'll set you on fire. If you hit them with something other than a blunt weapon, they will just go Super Saiyan and just engulf you in flame, and they won't stop attacking at that point. So they'll just go whoosh, and then they'll just hammer away, and you'll be dead very quickly.
And you'll be on fire, you'll be taking damage from them, but
you can't back away because they've just locked on you.
Yeah, and they're super fast, you can't outrun them.
So much damage. They output so much damage so quickly, especially after they've ignited. It's very strong. So you'll get lit on fire from the ignition if you like try and knife them, and then they'll just wail on you. And you really need a team to take them down if they start getting ignited, not because you can't take it down yourself, but because it needs to go down as soon as possible.
Yep. Yeah, I think emulators for me are probably the scariest and most difficult of all of the enemies. Because, like, a lot of them, you can kind of dispatch them from a distance. Like hives, you got the target on the head. Meat boys, you can dynamite them or you just avoid them. Dogs are tough because you can't outrun them. But if you have a group with you, you're pretty set. Solo is going to be really tough to get rid of a pack of hellhounds. But immolators, they see you from a long way. They run after you. They explode. And they're especially dangerous if you're getting attacked at the same time by another grunt.
Well, let's talk about what I feel is even worse than any of the ones we've talked about, and that's the water devils, or what do you call them, Dan? The something worms?
Razor worms.
Razor worms.
Yeah.
So there are two maps in this game, and one is more swamp-like, and the other still has some water features, but not nearly as many. And in them, you will see these ripples of bubbling water, and that indicates water devils. These water devils are like octopi with razors all over them, and you only see their tentacles, but they will take a bar every time they hit you, and you'll bleed hard. And what's really difficult is if you are not carrying a lengthy melee weapon or have like bolts for a crossbow or a suppressed weapon, you're giving away your position constantly, because one, they make a lot of noise and they do a lot of damage, so you have to kill them quickly. But if you fire, you're going to bring everyone to your position and they're going to know where you are. And I hate them, and it seems that I am the only one to ever get hit by them, because you guys will be smooth as hell and jump across the water, but your toe will touch at the end as I'm in the air.
Yeah.
And then I'll just land inside of their loving embrace.
Yep.
Yeah. These are super dangerous if you go in a row 1, 2, 3 across the same crossing point, because they have this weird pattern where they'll get alerted and they'll move kind of tangential to where you are disturbing the water, and then they'll swing over to where you were disturbing the water. So if it kind of gives you a little bit of breathing room if you're there early and they're not alerted, if you're the first one in the water, then you can usually get across like a decent sized river without a problem. But if you're the last one or even a late second one, then they will be active and ready to attack you as soon as you touch.
Yeah, that first person crossing is usually safe. And the last guy's in trouble if we're all crossing.
Real
at the same
big
time.
trouble.
So yeah, I would say for that, at that point, it's better to like break away, because they can't go like extremely long distances. They have like a decent range, but it still will take them a bit to get over to your position. So if in the case that you see water devils, it's good to find one, a close crossing so that you can spend less time in the water, or two, kind of split up a little bit ways so it won't be able to hit you as easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can get it to go away if you shoot it a few times, but it usually respawns a second one pretty quick.
Yeah.
So
it's only a couple seconds.
Yeah. But it should be enough for you to cross, so that's kind of how we take care of them. What else we got? What other devils are out there in the Bayou?
We got armored and Concertina armored, which isn't clear exactly what the Concertina armored is. But an armored is just basically a grunt who's got a bunch of resistances. I don't know if they do extra damage, but they take more damage from blades, from stabbing things. Mm-hmm. So a knife is really good against them. Only takes 3 charged attacks, and they go down if you try and shoot them. Or I think punching takes a bit too. Yeah, and it'll take a bit. I think a hammer is 2 strikes against it, and an axe is only 1. And the Concertina, which is what they call basically like razor wire or like barbed wire, is one of those armored wrapped with sharp wire that will hurt you if you are close enough when you do a melee attack.
I feel like
it'll start bleed.
I feel like we left off in like one of the most lame of all enemies as far as how you kill them. I feel like I've never really gotten hit by an armored, because it's so easy to kill them in 3 hits with a knife. It's just like dead.
And here's the other thing about it is if you run out of stamina with a knife, your swings take about the same amount of time as it takes to react to the recoil. So it still won't hit you if you're out of stamina. You can sit there and swing at it like 4 times with no stamina, and you'll still be able to kill it before it can hit you.
Mm-hmm. Armoreds do guard those clues. Almost every single clue will have an armored guarding it. Concertina's way more scary, but one of my tips for those is use the cavalry saber. That thing has a lot more range than you might think, and so you can easily stab a Concertina from afar without getting hit. Because as soon as you come in distance, touch it, it'll start doing bleed damage to you.
And Bomb Lance also works with that, the melee for Bomb Lance. So I'm wondering if the other like bayonet versions would work as well. Mm-hmm. But you got to hit that range. You got to be kind of at the end of the cavalry saber's range to not get bled.
Mm-hmm. So all of these things you are going to encounter on your way to the boss, for sure.
We're only in Act 1, people.
Before you
Still
get
in
to the
Act
boss.
1.
Yeah.
They'll be there after you kill it too, but
That's true.
you know, they'll be there before you kill the boss. So you fight your way through the Hellhounds, cross the Razor Worm waters, you kill the Concertina armored, and you make it. You make it to the boss's lair. And you hope you have a sticky bomb, first of all.
Before we get to the boss, I want to hear what your top 2 danger enemies and the least dangerous enemy is.
Of all of the normals, the standards?
Of the, like, grunts and specials.
Least for me is the regular armored.
I agree.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Hardest is concertinas are hard to avoid for some reason.
They do lock on and like will charge you.
Oddly enough, they are really high up there. Even like the meaty boys suck, but you can avoid them pretty easily. And then dogs for me. I do not like the dogs.
For me, it is Immolator is number 1, most deadly. Least, I would probably agree, the regular armored, or just the water devils. I feel like they're not too bad because you can avoid them. You usually have to pass through the water, like we end up in a situation where we have to go through it. But I think overall they're not too bad. They're easy to avoid.
Yeah, I think on their own, I think dogs would still be the most dangerous. Like if we're just encountering these enemies separately, armored is the least dangerous, and probably the Immolator would be second most dangerous.
I like the variety. I will say that.
Yes.
I think there's probably room for more variety.
Sure.
But as far as what we have now, I'm pretty content. I mean, it gives you different ways to attack your enemies because more than half of this game is killing AI enemies and not your, fellow players. So
what I like about this is the same dynamic that you see across the game, which is everything is straightforward until you're doing multiple things at once. And then that's when like the dynamicism kind of kicks in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the only time that I panic and I start when I feel overrun, when I'm already bleeding, poisoned, and an Immolator is chasing me. That's when you screw up. That's when you make mistakes. One by one, going after each of these enemies, not too difficult.
Right.
But as soon as you're fighting one of them and get hit from an actual player, you're in trouble. You panic. And so that's always exciting.
I had a really great encounter. Cody and I were playing when Dan was not around, and I had a bomb lance, and a dude shot me down to like a quarter of my health left or something like that, and I was able to get in melee range and hit him. But my our shooting attracted a group of zombies, so I had like just a quarter of my health left, less than a bar, and I started getting attacked by like a torch bearer grunt and a couple of normal grunts. And I was so scared, and I was just like trying to knife him and heal before his friend came around the corner to kill me. And I was just yelling, "This is not how I die."
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I remember that, but I could have been making that up. It was like, this is not how I die. Not after all of this.
It was so bad because if the fire guy like lit me on fire, it was going to be really rough. I was one hit from dying, so I had to be really precise about all my hits. I actually switched to my knife in order to get the melee hits off that I needed because the bomb lance takes half your stamina. So that's one of the things that, like, if I hadn't done that, I probably would have lost at least a chunk of my health and probably would have killed me.
I wish I was there for that.
Well, you weren't, Dan.
True.
So then after all that, we get to the bosses.
Bosses, Act 2 of 3.
So the bosses here become the next challenge that is under the biggest time constraint. The first part, I would argue, is not so much a race against the clock, even though it feels it, because you can kind of leisurely go about getting clues. You just want to keep up a good pace, right? There's not a lot of pressure, especially on a 2-monster map.
And I think we do a great job of, like, I think we're relatively fast for teams getting clues. I think we're super efficient because generally we are the first ones to it, especially on a 1-monster map. We tend to be the first ones there, unless somebody stumbles upon it, luckily.
Yeah. Now, when you get to the lair and you discover the bosses, that's when the anxiety kind of ramps up a little bit. You know that the second that you kill this thing, if you can kill this thing, you have to secure the perimeter and then play a waiting game. But first, you have to kill either the butcher, the assassin, or the spider. Let's start with the butchie boy.
Let's do it.
I like the butcher.
I also like the butcher. He is the least forgiving. But when you have a sticky bomb, let's not spend a ton of time on the sticky bomb is my vote.
Sure.
The long and short of all of this is for 2 of these 3, until recently 3 of 3, you could bring a sticky bomb in. If you throw the sticky bomb, it sticks to the boss. They will lose 75% health, and you just kind of go in and clean up. Right?
Kind of a
But
cheat
this
code.
isn't about that. This is about explaining them and talking about how you can kill them otherwise. The butcher is he is a large pig, like an 8-9 foot tall pig that is a butcher, oddly enough. And he hurts. He carries a torch and a sickle, or a meat hook. It's a meat hook and a
Meat
torch.
hook, yeah.
And he will slice you, dice you, and then he will fried rice you.
Yeah, he can throw fire, which is not very often, but he will kind of like attack at range with a fireball. He swings really hard with melee. I think he's actually one of the least dangerous because you can get in a really good melee attack rhythm with him with any of the 2-handed melee weapons like the sledgehammer or the axe and do really, really good damage to him even without a sticky bomb.
Dearest Jonathan,
Yeah.
I don't have a death wish. I do not wish to use a melee attack on a 9 foot tall pig with a meat hook.
So the really nice thing is you stagger him with a full swing of a melee hit. So you don't, I rarely take damage from it unless I'm standing my ground. So what you'll see me with what you mentioned earlier is me with my elbows in the air. I will swing at him, run away, charge my melee swing again, and you can sprint with your melee charge. So I'll sprint up to him, hit him, run away. And that you can repeat it super easily and down him pretty quickly, especially if 2 people have melee weapons. It's actually really easy.
My only issue with the butcher is I get too penisy. I get too cocky. I go in there with my melee. I hit him. It looks like he's taking damage because in a lot of situations with other bosses, you hit them a few times and they sort of like get not frenzied, but they back off. That's the opposite of frenzied. They back off. They kind of like take a different route. They run away from you and then circle around and then attack you again.
Yeah,
the butcher has a penchant for just charging right through your attacks, not giving any fucks, and just smacking you with that meat hook, roasting you with that torch. And it's a pain in the ass because you think you're going to hit him and he's going to fall back, but instead he pushes towards you. And that's exactly how I went down that last game we played the other night. And suddenly we were surrounded. I was down a bar. It was just a bad situation all around because I got too penisy. And I find myself only with the butcher getting in that position.
Also, his head falls off like when you're 3/4 through the fight.
Oh, yeah, that's neat. You can kick it around like a soccer ball.
The most dangerous thing about him, if you're not careful at the beginning when you start playing this game, is his death throw. When you kill him, he will drop to his knees headless, and he will take one final like cross swing with his fireball and meat stick, and he'll mess you up.
Yeah, he's killed me a few times with that.
Yeah. But then we have the Assassino.
El Assassino.
Probably my least favorite boss.
I do not enjoy the Assassino.
Italia.
However, I am
Italy.
the best. I would say that if we were going to rank all of these, right? Dan is the best at killing the spider. I'm the best at the assassin, and John is the best at the butcher. I think that's almost inarguable.
Oh, wow. John, I feel like you want to argue it because that's just kind of what you do. That's kind of your shtick.
Just arguing.
What do you feel about that statement?
No, I'm curious to hear the strat that Dan comes with that is great at killing the spider and the strat for killing the assassin, because I feel like both of those enemies are not there. It's hard to like have a good strat to it. Like the butcher, you can kind of stun lock it. That's the thing that I like about it, and I think it's the easiest because of that. So I'm curious if there's something similar to the assassin and the spider that I don't really know.
Yes. Okay. So we agree that John is best at killing the butcher. Based on his very humble brag there.
Yep.
The assassin, you guys struggle when he splits, and I don't. And I don't know why, but when he splits, you don't know which one is which, and you guys tend to back away or attack and get it wrong. And I oftentimes still get hit markers and know when he's there, and I don't often get I don't know what to even call it. So he'll get stuck on the ceiling after a while, and he'll shoot blades out, and he'll like spear you. And I don't often get hit by that, but I can tell when he's starting to climb the walls that that's about to happen, and I back away. The only thing that he ever gets me with is he'll turn into bugs when he's kind of apparating in and out of the area, and I'll get bugged, but that doesn't do much damage, if any.
No.
But I feel very confident every time we fight the assassin that I'll be able to get a lot of really good hits on him without having to use any kind of melee.
Yeah, I hate the immune state that he gets when he
it's like crappy
he kind of like wiggles and kind of looks up, and then he splits into 3. And during that phase, it either does reduce damage or he's immune to damage.
I think it's immunity. Yeah,
it might be immunity, and it's really frustrating to deal with that. And that's why I like the sticky bomb so much, is because we could just kind of bypass
the whole thing.
However, there is no sticky bomb strat with the assassin anymore.
Well, that's a known bug.
Is that still a known bug, or did they say that that was the bug?
They should be.
Because there were two pieces in there about that sticky bomb. Is that one, it was hovering, but I could have sworn that one of them said it should not be able to stick to the assassin.
Well, we'll have to go back and check.
We'll have to check that one. But regardless, as of right now, at the recording of this podcast on 6/29, the year of someone's Lord 2020 at 9:08 p.m.
GMT -5.
Yep. You cannot kill the assassin with a sticky bomb.
However, something that we found out recently, weak to poison.
He is weak to poison, which is a strange one that we never really paid any attention to or tried.
I wonder waste the poison bomb on him because he moves around so much.
Well, so here's the thing. If you want to cheese the crap out of it, which I know John doesn't because he's very historically not a cheeser, you throw a poison bomb down, you stick yourself with a poison needle. Antidote. What do you call it? Antidote shot. And you stand in the poison, and then when he attacks you, he kills himself. Which
is a good one.
It's kind of dumb as hell, but it's cool. If it works,
sacrificial.
Go for it.
Mock sacrificial.
I don't think I want to do that. You're carrying the poison bomb and the antidote shot just for that specific reason. I'd rather have other tools. I'd rather fight it the normal way. But it's something you can try if you're feeling squirrely.
On to my third.
Well, first, before we go on to the third, I would agree that the assassin is similar to the spider. I feel like they both benefit from good aim because they like to be bugs. Both of them like to be bugs. And being bugs, you tend to crawl around on the floors, walls, and ceilings, which they do. And when the spider is up in the corner and spitting at you, you can shoot it. You can, get flick shots on the spider. The assassin and the spider just seem very similar styles. They're like a similar way to approach the fight. The butcher is kind of just like, I'm a big meaty boy. I'm a pig boy. I'm going to slice you with my meaty hook.
I'm a big meaty boy. I'm a pig boy.
It's kind of its thing. That's all it kind of does. But
what I like here is that I was going to transition to describing and comparing the spider and the assassin. Before you do that, let me do that.
Take it away, Cody. I will lean back.
What Daniel said is accurate. And the reason that I believe that Dan is better at killing the spider is because when he goes in with the sticky bomb, you will miss the assassin more often than you would ever miss the spider.
He disapparates.
I wish that we could have any hard data on that. It is just a gut feeling. However, you are much more accurate and confident in your hold of the sticky than I am. Whereas I oftentimes will want to throw it after 4. Yeah.
You're like, and you throw it, and then we're just sitting in the corner waiting for it to go off, and it's a solid 6 seconds, and we're just like sitting there, and we hear the fuse going, and we're like, you could have held it.
when my heart starts pumping, guys, I can't. It's just,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
yeah. But the spider ends up being something that I will pretty often I'll get knocked down and then poisoned, and I'm hiding in the corner because I can't take more damage, and you're chasing it down more often. I feel like, John, you're more strategic with the spider because you'll back away and wait until you can see the spider, where Dan is pretty gung-ho about finding the spider.
Oh, yeah. I get in there real quick. If you have an antidote shot applied, the spider is a cakewalk because it can't do any damage to you, really. It does barely any damage other than knocking you down, which doesn't really hurt you. It just kind of takes you out of the fight for a bit.
But it won't do that if you stand next to it, and it'll just keep trying to poison you. It'll hit you like 3 or 4 times, and it won't even do a full large bar if you've got the antidote shot on.
Right. So yeah, I'm not too scared of the spider. It's definitely one of the creepiest, maybe probably the creepiest of all of the enemies, but it's not too scary to fight.
So I think, going back to Cody's point, I think why I'm not so great at the assassin or necessarily the spider is because of the timing for the melee recharge. Like, because I usually have a melee weapon, I want to hit and then back away, and the assassin and the spider both have better at chases, I think, because they go out of vision, can crawl on walls, they can go like, weird ways to get to you, whereas the butcher kind of follows a straight path, and you can have other people on your team kite for you.
Yep. Cody, shoo away that bird outside your window. I can hear it.
I wish I could, Dan. I am a safe haven for all avian beings. What do you want from me? Listen to the angelic sounds of the mourning doves, the blue jays, the orioles, the cardinals. Please.
Cody gets his angel voice.
Yeah, he's like a Disney princess.
I speak to them and they speak to me. There is a mutual respect.
He has long flowing hair. It fits.
Yeah.
Petite figure.
Oh.
There it is.
One thing I love to do with the spider is throw the lanterns at it.
Oh, yeah. It is weak to fire.
And she'll like screech and run away and catch more things on fire.
I like how we've decided that the spider is female. It fits.
Well, so in my head, it's the spider from the Lord of the Rings, which is referred to as a she.
Ah, I see.
Goth? The she-goth? Is that it?
Yeah, like the name has she in it, and then they refer to it as she.
Oh, not Aragog. He's a guy.
Aragog is a guy. Yeah.
He's a guy, yeah. Spider is weak to fire. It's weak to blunt damage. So, blaze it. Literally. The only thing I would say is just get in there and smack it. Antidote yourself, and you're going to have no issues at all.
Antidote is so good with it.
So you've made it to Act 2. Hopefully you've killed the boss. And now it's time to start Act, can I say 2.5? Which is the setting up of the traps.
The setting up of the traps works its way to 3 quickly because it begins your extract, right? You've killed the monster. You need to banish the monster, prepare your defenses, and get ready to leave. Because during this time, you are making your plan and you're executing your plan.
The good news, though, is at the start of the banish phase in the trap setting section, you get healed by banishing the boss.
Correct. If you are missing a health bar, banishing the boss will restore your health. And most of the time, that's all your health. But we found a few glitches where it's all but 25 hit points.
It might be that it only restores 1 bar. That seems to be consistent. However, it says it heals all health, which is true if you haven't burned out or gone down enough times to remove all those health bars. It'll heal you full. It just might not restore every single health bar that you have. Health chunk.
And dare I say, the setting of the traps phase, far and away Cody's favorite phase. Favorite act. Loves the Concertina.
Love it. They are the Concertina mine and the Concertina bomb are far and away the best defensive weapons in this game.
So this is also the phase where everyone knows where you are. Because as soon as you banish, it alerts everybody in the server and it shows your location on the map. So this is when you will fight somebody if anyone's left on the server.
Sorry, I totally zoned out there for a second.
The other thing is during the boss phase, this can be super scary because of teams rolling up on you. It's super, super dangerous. So you always got to keep your eyes out, and which is why we like to do a sticky bomb, which makes it very quick, and melee weapons, which are much quieter rather than just blasting our way out of there. If you start blasting, people might hear and figure out that you're fighting the boss and come get you.
Yes.
So then you start trapping. And this is the fun part. We have been like to figure out if there's one entrance or two entrances that may not use as many traps on to try and kind of funnel them. But everywhere else, pretty much, we all carry Concertina trip mines.
Yeah, things we tend to avoid are crawl spaces are easier to cover. And then there are boarded up doors that have a barricade on them. So you can open them from the inside easily, but you have to break them down on the outside or blow them up from the outside to get through. So we don't necessarily have to cover them with concertinas, which is really helpful in the banishing phase. I think that's deciding which doors, which crawl spaces, which drop downs you're going to use is key to leading people to where you want them to go, or just being able to keep them at bay so they make a mistake on the outside.
And also where you think people are going to come from.
Yeah.
Also, I tend to not cover the crank door so much because if somebody's cranking it, you can kind of
that's true.
Usually take care of it. Those are second priority, I would say.
Yeah. So you set your traps. People come in. They're shooting. You're rooting. You're tooting. You're shooting. You win. Time to leave. You check your map. Of course, extracts on the other end. You set out. You try to get out. And there's probably still another team hanging around most times. Sometimes you fight them all and it's a free cakewalk and an easy victory lap. But sometimes there's another team, and smart teams will try to set up a defense between you and, of course, the extract. But here's where it gets interesting, because there's a lot of times you can outplay them. They do know where you are, roughly, based on the lightning bolts that appear on the map. But you know where they are more accurately, but only when they're close to you, by using your dark sight that you picked up when you got the token from the boss. So that grants you that 5 seconds of visibility to enemies within something like 100, 150 meters, and you can see them as highlighted orange people in your field of view.
One thing I like about the banishment phase is it kind of gives you a sense of where you are in the map. And I don't mean like geographically, I mean like how many teams are left. Because you really light a fire under anyone who's still on the map once you start banishing to come to that point and stop you. It's under it. They have to make the move at that point. So I think there's a lot of really fun ways to play that. You can be a little bit more aggressive, and we tend to trap up and be passive and have an escape route. And that gives us a good advantage against multiple teams trying to assault our position, because they'll generally run into each other and either wound or take out portions of that team, and then we can try and fight back or defend the position well.
I think the most fun part of this game is setting up the traps and waiting for people to come in, trying to defend. That's probably the point where I have the most fun. It's always exciting. But smart players are smart. You know, they're going to avoid the concertina doors. They're going to wait for you to come out because they know just as well that you have to leave to extract. Sometimes they can make for really long, drawn-out fights that are not so exciting. But other times you get another team that will roll up, and suddenly the team caught in the middle is going to want to push in to get some protection from the people on the outside. So that's when it gets hot and really interesting.
Hot!
Spicy!
And no building is built perfectly and super defendable.
Right.
Like, there are holes in the wall, there are windows that you can't reach.
Honestly, there are even buildings that are hard to be...
to hold.
Not to hold, to be on the offensive. Like, some you're literally just like, I can't shoot at. The boathouse, I don't know, on the docks there, like, there are not many places that don't make you vulnerable by trying to shoot out of.
Yeah, which I think is a good balance, because we've been in tons of situations where, like, the that place that we keep getting trapped at that has like the 2 levels, that has the outpost by the fence.
Yes.
Where Dan got shot a bunch from that one guy who kept peeking. So that building, which I can't remember what it is.
Can't remember it.
Should have done our research.
It's in the southwest side of the
Fucking
map.
hacks. We are hacks.
It's on the south map. It's version of one of the maps. But anyway, we got so many throwables thrown at us during that round. Like people just assaulting the building with fire bombs and explosives, trying to make us come out of the building. But we were just holding our ground until a second team rolled up, basically. And that was a pretty good strat, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gets real tricky. I think one of the things we need to talk about at one point are the buildings. The fact that they're not your typical square boxes where you're sealed in and the only entrance is one door. There are a lot of entrances. There's a lot of weird angles. The environments are very fitting of the setting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variation. There's a lot of variety. Because the bosses could be in so many different places, it makes for some very unique fights where you might not exactly know the best way to defend or the best way to attack it because you haven't, banished an enemy there too often. So it's very cool stuff. There's a lot of cracks in the side of the house, the side of the doors, the sides of the building, the roof, the underground. Like there's many, many different ways to play it. And I think it has a lot of replayability because of that. And it's very difficult to master the map.
Lots of verticality too.
Yeah.
To a lot of
multiple floors. So many times, every night, multiple times, Cody's like, kill it upstairs. Because usually it's easier to defend the upstairs.
Every time I think, oh shit. What? So like I'm learning though, there are a couple of places where it is better to kill the monster downstairs, but most of the time you want to keep it up top because you'll be able to completely block off the bottom as our escape route if we need it to be. And you have a better vantage point to everybody else. Now, there are some places where the throwables can come in and there's nowhere to hide. That's a bad one. Mm-hmm. There are also some where the windows are too large for you to be able to defend appropriately. But I stand by most of the time. Keep it upstairs.
Yeah. Upstairs also usually means there's one or two at the most staircases they can approach you from. It also means they're probably climbing a ladder, which makes a lot of noise and is immediately... you can tell what the ladder sound is, so it's immediately noticeable.
Forever.
There's also usually a situation where they have to run across a rooftop to get in the window, which is where you're hiding out upstairs, which, again, makes a lot of noise when you run on a roof. So there's a lot of benefits to staying upstairs.
Sometimes you can shoot through cracks in the wall that are like either through penetrating the wood wall, which the larger weapons can do, or by actually shooting through a small crack. But personally, I like camping by a door usually, just in case someone opens it. I feel like I can outplay someone near a door pretty well, rather than trying to peek windows. I feel like we get killed so much trying to just watching for somebody, and then we'll just get randomly headshot, like with somebody with a scope or something.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
So did we survive? We made the fight? We made
the fight. We made it out. Now what?
You're running.
You gotta run for your life.
And it's usually the opposite side of the map.
So sometimes you will be able to do the math in your head and know that there is nobody left on that map. Those are the easy ones. You got into an early fight, and then when you were holding it down, you got into a fight with two other teams. You know everyone's dead. And then there are the times where you see that something is... You have a pretty direct path, whether it is right close to you, the extract point, which is either a steamboat or a horse-drawn carriage. It's either right on the path behind you, to your right, whatever, or it is a straight shot down the map, south, north, whatever, and you know where the other team might be.
Right.
You have 10 seconds worth of dark vision, which will highlight your enemies in orange if they are close enough. 2 sets, 5 seconds. That's when you make the decision to stay and fight or go. A lot of times we will, like I said, no. But the times we don't and we're pinched and we're not in a good fighting position, we'll say, let's book it. Let's go to the far extract point instead of the close extract point. And then the actual hunt begins because you become the hunted. And you are running for your life trying to get out. Now, keep in mind on the way, you are being hunted by 3 other people, and you still have to cross the terrain knowing that there are grunts after you. So if they hear you, if they see you, dogs, meaty boys, armoreds, hives, they're going to attack you. They don't care that you're on your way. And you have to beat the other team to your extract point and then wait 30 seconds. If they get close enough, it'll stop that timer and you'll have to fight it out. And it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you get downed or a teammate gets down near the extract, it'll halt the extract until you revive that person. So it's kind of like if there's a fight, if someone's close enough where someone gets down, then your progress is stalled. And you're probably not going to get out without finishing the fight. The other thing I wanted to mention is on our long distance runs, we tend not to be downed or killed by the normal AI enemies anymore. And it's because we go guns hot, right? Like anything that moves, we're going to shoot it.
Yeah, it no longer matters.
Yeah, because they can see where you are on the map because of the lightning bolt. They can track you through dark vision. So the alerting doesn't matter so much. And we tend not to see the bigger ones like the Concertina armoreds or the meatheads because we don't go through the zones much anymore. We tend to stay like in the forest, try to stay out of sight, like visual sight, or on the roads because it's flat and you can get there really easily. So it tends to be easier to go through those swarms and the hordes at the end because you're ready for a fight. You're not trying to stealth it anymore.
Yep. Yeah, my favorite part is that final victory lap. Just popping off, weapons hot, killing everything on the way. Knowing that you have no one left feels good. You've got all the tokens. You got 4 tokens in your pockets. You're ready to roll. Huge traits coming at you. And we got to cover the traits soon, too. What to do. And the final act, which is you've won. How do you pick what trait to apply to your character?
And maybe we get into that next week.
I think
let's
maybe
talk traits and loadouts next week.
Perfect. Look at that transition.
Stay tuned for that. I think that you guys are really going to enjoy next week's episode because traits are some of the most fun, and the loadouts are so versatile.
So much
sometimes it's hard to pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Hell yeah, brother.
And I don't think any of you assholes called the hotline, so can't make that shit bling, but call the hotline.
508-216-0006. Call it.
Love you.
Wear a mask.
Hello.
Hello, Caitlin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. I wanted to apologize to you for I missed your birthday yesterday, and so I wanted to make it up to you if you would be so kind.
Wow, thank you. It's no worries. Oh.
Nope, that's not right. Nope. There it is. Happy birthday, oh dear Caitlin. Happy birthday, oh dear Kate. I hope it was a wondrous birthday and that you ate some cake.
Wow.
Thank you.
Speechless.
Thank you. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. That was phenomenal.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
That is all.
Okie dokie. You get
Okay, bye
back to
now.
it. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Wow.